This podcast was produced by Sean Weston Media.
I am enjoying this vibe, this tone we have going in the background of being in a cafe, enjoying a coffee and a pastry, and chit-chatting about things such as, can older employees learn new tricks? Did I come up with that because you sometimes see a slightly greying version of a barista in a Starbucks, and you think, are they going to make my coffee as good as that spotty youth over there?
I suspect they'd make it better, wouldn't you?
And why?
Experience?
But experience in the coffee.
Perhaps.
They may have been a company director for 40 years of their life and then decided, you know, I'm bored with retirement, I'm going to go and work for my local Starbucks. So they're massively overqualified.
But don't they have a will to be there? They actually want to do that job.
Does that make the difference in being able to learn a new skill?
I don't think it does, but I think wanting to do something, you're more likely to learn a new skill, aren't you? If you're just there because you have to be there, that's different, isn't it?
The willingness to...
A willingness to do something new and be busy. Yeah. I mean, it's a stereotype, isn't it? That older people can't learn something new.
Well, it's definitely a stereotype. But I tend to think that stereotypes only exist because there is an element of truth in a stereotype for many things. We just don't like stereotyping, but there is always an element of truth there. And there is a sense that you can meet resistance from people who've been longer in your business. They're longer in the tooth, maybe, but perhaps they're not even old, but they've been in your business for a long time, and they're more, you know...
They're not susceptible to change. They don't want it to be different.
Yeah, so when those new people come in, you know, junior so-and-so, and then junior so-and-so is promoted the year after, and they start to introduce new tools and things, and then 20-year veteran of the company thinks, I don't want to change, I like the way I've done things. So you're saying the difference is in willingness, and that older person will go, oh, do you know what? I've been waiting to learn something new.
I mean, how often have you been in an organisation, everyone's moaning about how something's done? It's always like this here. There's going to be some people, maybe it comes down to people, maybe it's individuals and how they react, but I kind of like this idea of, if you try and think about people who have been in a workplace a long time, they've probably actually gone through a huge amount of change, haven't they?
Mm.
That we maybe don't think of as bigger, but maybe it was just as big at the time. Yeah. If you started a job where you used a typewriter and then you used a computer, I guess that was a bigger change than...
Massive change.
You know, moving to word processing or internet age kind of feels a bigger deal than saving your files online, doesn't it?
And those sorts of things will happen more because we're staying in work longer. Yes. So we'll see, and technology is moving much quicker. So the shift from the typewriter to the computer to so on, they were long periods. But now you could get a change every 2 years, couldn't you, in terms of how you do something? Maybe
technology is the easy thing for us to look at with change because it feels immediate and fresh and new, and maybe that's where this misconception of older people not adapting to change.
Oh, you mean they're not tech savvy?
It might be a tech savvy thing, and what could you do to help them? Because maybe they want to learn it, it's just not second nature to them. So you may have one of your even millennials or your, you know, young people just starting work now who have always had technology in their life. They've always had a phone in their hand or a computer at home. Is there a way that you could bring the two together, be more inclusive about it?
How do you do that? Have you got an idea?
You could look at maybe something like reverse mentoring. So you could actually bring young people and older people to work together and to help them through it. So the older people may want to understand how this newfangled thing happens, but just don't know where to start, and maybe just need more time and more attention.
Oh, so sometimes it's not about being old, it's about perhaps feeling as if I'm going to be left behind, so I might as well be left behind.
Maybe. Or maybe it is as simple as it's just not obvious to them, and maybe as communicators, it's obvious to us, maybe it's obvious in us, and maybe we don't challenge what we do enough. It's actually quite a big difference. Do we actually need to spend more time with these people to help them through? Because actually they want to, they just don't know how.
Yeah. I like what you said earlier, actually, that it is much more to do with the individual. Because let's talk about our dads, for instance. Your dad is much more willing to learn about his iPad than my dad is.
Yeah.
You know, my dad, you suspect that if you stopped hearing from him, he hasn't figured out that he needs to just re-log in or change a password. Whereas your dad would be on it. And they're the same age, more or less.
Yeah, they are.
So it is down to the individual. It should have nothing to do with age. And yet, perhaps the statistics say that it generally is the older generation that can't learn new things or are a little resistant to.
Well, maybe think of it in a different way with change, because change could actually mean doing something in a different way. So I'm thinking if it's a business, you may used to have just been used to talking to a person who did something for you. You may have had a HR person who did all your paperwork for you. You know, you wanted to recruit someone, they did everything for you, apart from, even the interviews, they were probably there telling you who to hire. And now that person maybe doesn't exist, and maybe that support has to come through a digital tool or through a team working at a distance somewhere else. And is that change more difficult for people? It's actually the removal of people from their lives. Is that more difficult?
I think that could be part of it.
Of not having someone to do something for you, that actually as an individual you actually have a lot more things to do.
Well, that's different, because that's a different episode we're going to tackle, which is change. Whereas what you're saying there is that they're finding it hard to change rather than learn something new. And you've got a good point. It's a valid point. And let's talk about that in the change one. But where people leave and suddenly you find yourself having to learn a new skill, perhaps the skill of the person who left, and take away the fact that no one's going to pay you any extra for doing it.
Yeah.
But you suddenly find yourself thinking, do I have the capability to learn that new thing, or am I a bit frightened of it?
And so it might not be that you don't want to, it's just that you doubt yourself.
Yes.
Yeah. Or maybe you know yourself better. I mean, sometimes you've been around a bit longer, you know what you are good and you're not good at.
Yeah. Maybe that's the thing that stops you.
Maybe that's the thing that stops you, yeah. You're thinking, I've never been good at this.
You talk yourself into not learning the new thing and then double down on it.
And sometimes you think, you've probably seen some of these things come and go over the years and not really we don't really do that. We had this and that, and no one used that, and we still went back to printing it off. But then, I don't know, pandemic hits, and suddenly you need to know how to use cloud computing.
Or Zoom.
Or whatever it is. So sometimes the best way to change is to have no choice. Everyone has to learn at some point.
I'm 50. I'm still learning new tricks. I still enjoy learning new tricks. Yeah. Long may it continue. Next coffee.